Good evening. Welcome to the special Town Council meeting on Tuesday, May 4th. Can we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll have a moment of silence for all those that are still losing their lives due to COVID. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk Perry, please call the roll.
Councilman Bahal?
Here.
Councilman McAvoy?
Here.
Councilman Spadafino?
Here.
Councilman Wendell?
Here.
Council President Sullivan?
Here.
At a previous council meeting, the meeting was disrupted by several callers Zoom bombing and shouting out racial and religious slurs in an effort to disrupt the meeting. Be advised that any attempts to disrupt an East Brunswick council meeting will be considered harassment, and your IP address or phone number will be turned over to the East Brunswick Police Department, and you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by specifying time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda by posting a copy on the bulletin board located in the main lobby of the East Brunswick Municipal Building, providing a copy to the Home News Tribune and Sentinel newspapers, posting a copy on the Township's website, and by filing a copy in the office of the Township Clerk, which will be entered in minutes. The Township is using the telephone meeting format in an effort to mitigate the chance of exposure to COVID-19. As a part of the Township's ongoing effort to slow the rate of transmission and avoid overwhelming our treatment centers, the dial-in information and final agenda have been posted on the Township website and are posted on EBTV for members of the public. In order to make sure a clear record of the meeting can be made and that all parties are heard in an organized fashion, all members of the public will be muted during the meeting. If a member of the public wishes to speak during any public comment portion, please press *9 in order to raise your hand to speak. We will unmute members of the public individually if they have their hand raised. When it is your turn to speak, you will hear a notification that you have been unmuted. It is at that time you should begin to ask any questions you may have. Let's see, should you have any further comments or questions, the Township Council is always available by email and phone, and you can always call the mayor's office during normal operating hours. Each member of the public shall only have one opportunity to speak during each public portion. As the technology does not allow us to know if there are multiple callers on an individual line, we ask that if you wish to speak that you dial in on a separate line so that we can recognize you as a separate individual. Thank you in advance for your patience as we implement this technology to continue to move the Township forward during this health emergency.
Thank you. Okay, tonight's meeting is to make sure we understand and we hear from different advocates on the pros and cons of fluoride in the water. We will also hear from the Water Board, the Water Advisory Board, and also the Health Advisory Board. There'll be one from pro and one from con, and they will have 5 minutes to speak. And then if the council and the mayor would like to speak, they will have 5 minutes, and the public will have 3 minutes. We will be timed, and unfortunately, because we have so many people on, I want to make sure everyone has a chance. So it's one time. You're only allowed to speak one time during this meeting, whether it be the 10 minutes for the advocates, 5 minutes for the advisory boards and the council and the mayor, and 3 minutes for the public. Mike Spadafino, could you just give a little background, please, at this time?
Thank you, Council President. As a little bit of a history, back in 2015, after continuous presentations supporting and opposing fluoride at council meetings, the mayor made a determination and publicly announced a decision to remove fluoride from East Brunswick's water supply, saying that it was mass medication of the public and an unnecessary financial cost of between $50,000 and $70,000 per year to the residents. Before any action was taken, the mayor took a vocational change forcing his resignation. Since that time, this issue keeps on coming up and being continuously kicked down the road with no action being taken. Whether for or against fluoridation of East Brunswick water supply, this council hopes to put this issue to rest for once and for all. This, I think, is our goal tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Spadafino. And I would like to have our first advocate. He will speak why we should leave fluoride in the water, Dr. Howard Sorkin. Welcome. Could you unmute?
Thank you. Good evening, Council President Sullivan, members of the Town Council, and Mayor Cohn. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on a topic that is vitally important to the residents of East Brunswick and personally to me, community water fluoridation. By way of introduction, for those of you who do not know me, I'm Dr. Howard Sorkin. I live on Boston Post Road. I've had a dental practice on Cornwall Drive for the last 43 years. The vast majority of my patients are our neighbors and our friends right here from East Brunswick. I moved to East Brunswick in 1968 as a 16-year-old. My mom and dad moved us here from Chicago because they knew what a great community this was to raise a family. In 1970, I graduated from East Brunswick High, and I moved away for both college and dental school. But I came back home when it was time to start a practice and to start a family, just like my parents did. Why did I do it? Because I love the town. I raised my 3 kids here, and I could not think of a better place to do so. And so, as some of you know, I've been actively involved in our community since I moved back. I've served on a number of organizational boards, including the East Brunswick Public Library Foundation and the East Brunswick Education Foundation, the latter of which I helped to found. I want to be very clear, though. East Brunswick's 60-year-old community water fluoridation program has helped make our community healthier and helped save our residents thousands of dollars in dental treatment costs. I see it every day. My East Brunswick patients have fewer cavities and healthier mouths than those patients who lived in other non-fluoridated towns. The advantage of having fluoride in the water supply is twofold. It combines both systemic and topical applications of the fluoride mineral. Systemically, the ingestion of the fluoride mineral strengthens the tooth during its development in children, resulting in a stronger enamel structure, while the topical effect, when we drink the water, strengthens the exterior of the tooth against demineralization that leads to decay. Fluoride is important for adults too, because our teeth remineralize or strengthen over our entire lifetime. The constant washing of teeth with water reinforced with the fluoride mineral and our saliva helps us to keep our teeth longer, reduces tooth sensitivity, and ultimately lowers our dental treatment costs. Now, people still need good oral health habits, like brushing and flossing and visiting their dentist regularly. But community water fluoridation serves as an essential component of the oral health triangle to prevent tooth decay. As a doctor, I want to help people to be healthier. It's why I went to dental school. Community water fluoridation makes people healthier. In fact, it's been proven to do so for the last 75 years. That's not Howie Sorkin. That's not me saying so. It's people from places like the CDC, the U.S. Surgeon General, the American Dental Association, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the National Institutes of Health, and scores of academic institutions that have peer-reviewed the science and efficacy of the fluoridated water time and time again. In 1994, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services issued a report that reviewed public health achievements. Community water fluoridation was lauded as one of the most economical preventive health interventions in the nation. In fact, in 1999, the CDC praised community water fluoridation as one of 10 of the greatest public health achievements of the 20th century, along with the invention of vaccines and recognizing tobacco usage as a health hazard. In 2000, the U.S. Surgeon General Dr. David Satcher issued the first Surgeon General's report on oral health. In his report, he stated, community water fluoridation continues to be the most cost-effective, practical, safe means for reducing and controlling the occurrence of tooth decay in a community. The report further stated that community water fluoridation is a powerful strategy in the efforts to eliminate health disparities among populations. In fact, multiple studies have shown that consistent low levels of fluoride in a water system ultimately reduce tooth decay by 25%. This has been supported by research published in such publications as the Journal of the American Dental Association, the Journal of Dental Research, and materials from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which I might note has an entire division dedicated to oral health and community water fluoridation, because water fluoridation is just that significant. They believe in supporting this initiative. For 75 years, the community water fluoridation has constantly been monitored and studied to evaluate the optimal concentration of this mineral and its safety. Trace levels of fluoride minerals are found in virtually all groundwater in the United States. Some communities have the optimal level. The CDC has indicated that that's 0.7 milligrams per liter. However, most towns, like East Brunswick, do not. So we add just a little of the fluoride mineral to the water supply, just like chlorine, charcoal, and other products that make our water safe and keep us healthy. The cost is minimal to achieve the therapeutic level of the fluoride in our water system. As you know, it costs the township approximately $50,000. In 2020, that number, according to the water department, was just under $49,000. And because it's $50,000 out of a $70.5 million budget, it's only a small percentage. But with our population of 48,000, that's roughly $1 per person per year, significantly less than having a cavity restored at your dentist, and significantly less than a cup of coffee at any of the local Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. Let us all pause for a moment and reflect on this past year. No doubt our world has changed. One of the many sad byproducts of this pandemic is it is harder for us to see our doctors, and fewer people are leaving their homes at all. This has harmed our overall health. We should recognize and celebrate what a tremendous service East Brunswick has provided for its residents during this very difficult time, and what you have done for your neighbors by providing them with a fluoridated water supply. Without ever leaving their homes, everyone has access to properly fluoridated water, and one leg of the oral health triangle has been maintained. East Brunswick is not alone in helping to better its residents' oral health. Towns across America, both large and small, and even here in New Jersey, optimally fluoridate their water supply every day. In 2018, 73% of the US population utilizing community water systems, or slightly over 200 million people, had access to fluoridated water, according to the CDC. What's more, 44 of America's 50 largest cities, including New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, and Washington, D.C., all optimally fluoridate their water supply. New York to the north has been doing it since 1965, and Philly to our south has been doing it since 1954. East Brunswick's program is just as old and venerable as theirs. Dozens and dozens of respected organizations like the American Dental Association, the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the World Health Organization have all come out in support of community water fluoridation time and time again. Here in New Jersey, the New Jersey Dental Association, the Oral Health Coalition, the Hispanic Dental Association, the New Jersey Coalition of Oral Health for the Aging, the New Jersey chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, the New Jersey chapter of the American...
1 minute.
Yeah, 1 more minute. I'm sorry, sir.
And including the Middlesex County Dental Association and many others, support continuation of the fluoridation. I know you're all enormously proud of our town, as I am, and we are sure we want EB to be the best it can be. Having a fluoridated water supply in East Brunswick does just that. In my opinion, to eliminate this program would be short-sighted and would further add to the imbalance of social equity and access to healthcare, while significantly tarnishing the reputation of our beautiful community. Thank you for your time tonight. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Dr. Sorkin, do you think it's possible that you could send it to our clerk's office, your so all the council people could have it?
Yes, ma'am.
This way we could have it, because I know all the people that you wanted a list and everything. This way we could look at that as well. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And sorry about that buzzer. It does ring at 1 minute, and then I apologize.
I wasn't anticipating it. I apologize.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, I thank you very much for your time. And Dr. Paul Connett, you will be speaking on why we should take out fluoride. Could you please unmute him? Yeah, you're unmuted.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mrs. Mayor, and the councillors for this invitation. Let me first state by saying that the last speaker referred to many organizations that have endorsed fluoridation. That's true. However, those endorsements are not worth anything unless they're based on the latest science. And unfortunately, many of the dental organizations are way out of date on the science. Secondly, he referred to the CDC's Oral Health Division. That's a division of about 30 people. They nearly all have dental qualifications. Very few are specialists in the tissues that we're concerned about. The body has more in it than just teeth. We're concerned about other tissues, the kidney, the bones, the brain, and so on. They do not have the expertise. In fact, their mission is to promote fluoridation. And they do that. They spend a lot of money promoting fluoridation, but they don't spend a comparable time, nor do they have the experts to review the latest health studies, which is what I'll be doing in my presentation. Joseph, if you could switch now to my PowerPoint, thank you. And if you would, yes, so I will present the case then for ending fluoridation in East Brunswick, sorry. Could you advance to the next slide, Joseph, maybe? Okay, so I co-authored the book, The Case Against Fluoride, in 2010. I'm a retired professor who specialized in environmental chemistry and toxicology. I'm currently the director of the Fluoride Action Network, which was founded in 2000. That's our webpage. It has the largest database in the world available on fluoride's harmful effects. Next. So the arguments against fluoridation. Number one, using the water supply to deliver medicine is a poor medical practice. It should never have started. Well, because one, you can't control the dose. Two, you can't control who gets it. It goes to everyone, regardless of their age, regardless of their health status, and regardless of their ability to avoid fluoridated water if they want to. In other words, it discriminates against low-income families. There is no oversight, no personal oversight from any professional. The council may or may not vote to keep this going, but none of you will be overseeing the individuals and their health responses to this practice. Fourthly, it violates the individual's right to informed consent. You will be doing to the whole community what an individual doctor in East Brunswick could do to no one, force them to take medication. Next, fluoride is not a nutrient. We don't need it. There's not one process in the human body that has been shown to need fluoride. Even fluoridation promoters admit that the benefit to teeth is largely topical. And for those who want fluoride topical, you want topical exposure, then you've got treatments available. For example, fluoridated toothpaste, which is universally available. Next. The fluoride ion is very toxic. It harms many biological processes. That's why certain lower creatures like bacteria and fungi have proteins in their membranes to pump fluoride out of the cell. In other words, nature recognizes that this ion is incompatible with biochemistry. Now, we humans have kidneys which get rid of about 50% of the fluoride each day, and a large amount of the remainder of the fluoride is sequestered particularly in our bones and in the other hard tissues. In other words, nature too keeps it out of the soft tissues as best as it can. Next slide. Now, the level of fluoride in mother's milk is extremely low, which is puzzling. If fluoride was really good for anything, wouldn't you think that nature would put it in mother's milk so every baby would get it? No, it's extremely low. So in effect, mother's milk protects the newborn baby from fluoride, but fluoridation removes that protection for babies getting formula fed with fluoridated water. A bottle-fed baby in a fluoridated community at 0.7, like East Brunswick, gets over 100 times more fluoride than a breastfed baby. There are many health concerns. The fluoride ion is neurotoxic. It can damage the brain. I'll give the evidence for that in a moment. There's a recent study from Sweden which shows that an increase in hip fractures in postmenopausal women exposed to the kind of fluoride levels that you are currently getting in East Brunswick. And fluoride has long been known to impact and lower the thyroid function. Now, there's a long history there, but I had to cut my talk down to 10 minutes, so there's much I've cut out. But those 4 studies that you're looking at, published since 2017, were financed by the National Institute of Health, or more specifically, the National Institute for Environmental Health Sciences. And they're shattering. These studies were shattering. They're very high quality. They controlled for everything, every confounding factor that you can think of. It was based upon individual measurements, not community measurements. And amongst other things, that they found the most sensitive age for a human being is the fetus. The fetus is the most sensitive to fluoride. And there is no, the fluoride can cross the center and get into the fetus. The fetus, this tiny little beginning of a human being, is exposed to this very toxic element from the word go, from day one of pregnancy. Well, what these first studies showed, from a study done in Mexico City, that there was a strong relationship between the level of fluoride that the pregnant woman was exposed to and the cognitive function, as measured in fluoride in their urine. Now, that's important, because when you measure fluoride in the urine, it's independent of the source of fluoride. In Mexico City, fluoride is fluoridated salt. But that doesn't matter. We can compare it with the United States, which fluoridates its water, based upon the measurement of fluoride in the urine. It's independent of the source. And what they found is a strong relationship between the level of fluoride the mother was exposed to and the cognitive function of their babies. Lowered IQ at the age of 4, and then again between 6 and 12. The same authors in the second study showed increased symptoms of ADHD, also related to the level of fluoride that the pregnant woman was exposed to. This study was essentially replicated in Canada in 2019. This was a major study in the Journal of the American Medical Association of Pediatrics. Please go and look at that, because the 2 authors of the journal gave an interview, a 30 podcast, explaining the shock that they had when they thought that fluoridation is completely safe. When they found out that it was lowering the intelligence of children, they were shocked. They were very, very surprised, as I think most medical professionals would be watching this, because you're not taught at this at dental school. You're taught that it's safe and effective, and they assume that if you say those 2 words enough times, everybody's going to believe it. But as far as
2 minutes remaining, 2 minutes.
As far as safety is concerned, you have to look at the sciences, what we have here. The one difference between the Green study and the Bashash study is that it was the boys that had the lowered IQ during pregnancy, the boys, when they were born. The girls did not seem to have a change, but later on it would. So it looks as if the boys may be more sensitive to exposure during fetal stage, and girls may be more sensitive in infancy, which is borne out by the fact that this fourth study, a very important study, again from Canada, they compared the IQs of children who had been bottle fed as babies, either in a fluoridated community or a non-fluoridated.
1 minute, 1 minute.
Thank you. And they found that the children that were bottle fed in the fluoridated communities had a lowered IQ up to 9 IQ points, lower than the babies bottle fed in the non-fluoridated communities. Next slide. Now, next slide, please. Yes, I want to explain as the estimated IQ loss from these studies, we put them all together as 2 to 7 IQ points. To put that into perspective, a loss of 1 IQ point reduces lifetime earnings by $18,000. That's billions of dollars for the whole population. And on a population level, a shift down of 5 IQ points would halve the number of very bright children, children with an IQ above 130.
10 seconds.
And increase the number of children needing support, IQ less than 70, by 57%. These are disastrous consequences.
Okay, I thank you very much for your time. If you could send the slides that you did during the presentation to the clerk's office, we'll present them to the council people via email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to ask that the Health Advisory Board, the person that wants it out, or the person that believes it should be out, and who will that be? I believe that's Ken Freeman. If you could unmute him. Ken, could you please unmute Ken Freeman?
I'm here, Council President Sullivan.
Okay, and you have 5 minutes, sir. Dr. Ken
I'm going to
Freeman.
be speaking. I was asked to speak about the action of the Advisory Health Council in 2017, but during the public portion, I'd like to be able to speak if you could acknowledge me.
No, you can only speak once. That's what we said.
Okay. I'll speak about the Advisory Health Council then. The East Brunswick Advisory Health Council, for many of you who may just be hearing about us for the very first time, is a local agency that was established in 1980. It meets quarterly and consists of 13 citizens appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the Township Council. Historically, appointees have been licensed healthcare providers in various fields of expertise, healthcare researchers, public health professionals, and a township liaison. Our 3-year terms are staggered. The primary responsibility of the Advisory Health Council is to advise the mayor and township council on health-related matters. This enables the mayor and the township council to make well-informed and impartial decisions on matters pertaining to public health and safety. It's especially important because it provides mayors and council members the additional assurance that they're living up to the public trust that's placed in them by the citizens of East Brunswick. The Advisory Health Council promotes health literacy through its award-winning television program, Wellness Spotlight, that airs on EBTV. It features locally and nationally prominent experts who discuss various aspects of health and wellness. The program, A Discussion on Fluoride, received the Best Talk Show Informational Award at the Jersey Access Group Jam Video Festival Awards. It's kind of like the Oscar for local television programming. It can be viewed with other archive programs on EBTV's Video on Demand. The liaison to the Advisory Health Council is Jill Veit, who replaced Sandy Catarzi when she retired. Since February of 1992, I've served on the Advisory Health Council under the administrations of Mayors Sinagra, Oskowski, Neary, Stahl, McAvoy, and Cohen. I currently serve as the Advisory Health Council president. So at the January 31st, 2017 meeting, which was attended by Mayor Cohen, he asked the members of the Advisory Health Council to review the subject of fluoridation of East Brunswick's public water supply. The members in attendance were Dr. Roberta Diakil, Dr. Elizabeth McSpirit, Dr. Wilbur Pan, Dr. Stephen Richards, Dr. Huzaifa Shakir, Dr. Michael Spadafino, Nurse Amy Lester, Nurse Dawn Hadland, Reiki Master Harriet Golub, Erin Gilbert, who's a public health professional, Sandy Katarzi, the East Brunswick Township liaison, and myself. The Advisory Health Council reviewed the research at that meeting and up to that meeting. We viewed the Wellness Spotlight program on fluoride that I previously mentioned. For those of you that are unfamiliar with it, that Wellness Spotlight fluoride program was a panel discussion that featured Dr. Richard Kahn, Dr. Paul Connett, and attorney David Lonsky. By way of their backgrounds, Dr. Kahn is an East Brunswick resident, a dentist specializing in periodontology, was a member of the East Brunswick Advisory Health Council, a past president of the New Jersey Dental Association, the Middlesex County Dental Society, and the New Jersey Society of Periodontists. He's a board member of the New Jersey Academy of Periodontology, was a commissioner on dental accreditation. Dr. Kahn advocated for fluoridation of the public water supply. Dr. Paul Connett has a PhD in chemistry from Dartmouth College. You just heard from him. He's a specialist in environmental chemistry and toxicology, and he's considered one of the world's foremost authorities on public water fluoridation. He advocated against fluoridation of the public water supply. Our well-renowned and respected attorney, David Lonsky, is counsel to many local municipalities, discussed the legal aspects. After a lengthy discussion involving all sides of
1 minute.
After a lengthy discussion involving all sides of this issue, the Advisory Health Council voted 9-3 to recommend to the Mayor and Township Council that the Township of East Brunswick not continue to purchase fluoride and not add it to the public water supply. The Advisory Health Council sent a letter dated February 1st, 2017 to Mayor Cohen and the Township Council advising them of our determination and recommendation. We performed our civic duty responsibly and acted without prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you. And who will be speaking from the Health Advisory Board to leave it in? Is there anybody from the Health Advisory Board that believes that we should leave it in? Can someone scan it and look to see if there's someone raising their hand?
Wilbur.
Oh, can you please unmute Dr. Wilbur Pan?
Sure.
Hello?
You're good, Wilbur. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I was actually unaware of this point-counterpoint format, so my comments are going to be a little bit off the cuff, but I'll do the best that I can. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Wilbur Pan. I'm actually a pediatric hematologist oncologist, and I've been living in East Brunswick since 2004. I came into New Jersey in 2000 to start my practice over at Robert Wood. Currently, I work for a pharmaceutical company doing breast cancer research and clinical trials, but I spent 18 years in practice. I joined the Advisory Health Council, and the vote on the fluoride was actually one of the first meetings that I went to. And to provide a little bit of background, when I came to New Jersey and we first had kids and we went to our pediatrician for the first time, our pediatrician asked us which part of East Brunswick do we live in, and we told her, and she said, "Oh, good, you guys have the fluoride." And it was a shock to me that there was actually communities in New Jersey that did not have fluoride. I come from the Midwest, and I did my residency in Texas, and my medical school and fellowship training in Chicago. And there, fluoride was basically part of the environment. It was not a question as to whether or not we should have fluoridated water. So it was quite a surprise to me coming into New Jersey that would be in place. So first of all, I'd like to provide some context in terms of the Advisory Health Council recommendations. The vote was 9-3, but when I joined the Advisory Health Council, I was the only pediatrician that was on that committee. There were two other people that had pediatric experience. The three of us were the ones that voted against voted to keep fluoride in the water. Because the way that I see it, this is a pediatric public health issue. And it's telling to me that all three people that had pediatric experience thought that fluoride in the water is a good idea. Overall, there have been tons of studies showing the benefits of fluoride. Dr. Sorkin covered that very well. I don't have the time to repeat all of that, but when you look at the whole of the medical literature, the benefits of fluoride have been well established for decades at this point. The only valid criticism that I see that there have been no recent studies on the benefits of fluoridation in water, but since it's a pretty well settled question, there's really no reason to do that. I'd also like to make a comment on Dr. Cornett's presentation. I saw his presentation on EBT-TV and listened to what he had to say here. And my take is that the evidence that he provides against the use of fluoride in water is often overstated and is a pretty good example of cherry-picking data to make your point. If you take a look at meta-analyses, again, looking at the literature as a whole, the benefits of fluoride are well established. There's actually very poor evidence to show the negative side effects that he shows. And I'd also like to point out that being a pediatric oncologist, I'm actually pretty aware of the toxicity of drugs as it applies to children, because the nature of what I do forces me to be aware to be aware of that. The dose of fluoride can be controlled because we do have the ability to determine how much fluoride is added to the water. There is oversight by public health authorities and water professionals. And just to point out one of the factual errors that Dr. Cornett is making, all the things that he says about fluoride in terms of how cells process it also apply to chlorine as well. And there seems to be no issue with chlorine in the water. The same cellular processes that pump out fluoride also pump out chlorine. So I don't really find his arguments credible, speaking as a medical professional. So to summarize, East Brunswick has had fluoride in our water system for decades. There is no evidence to show that that there's a harm to that. Probably most importantly is that there's no evidence to show what's going to happen if we take the fluoride out. And we've been in a public health emergency over the past year, and we've seen what happens when we do not let science drive the decision-making. And taking fluoride out without having any good evidence to show what's going to happen to the cavities in children if we remove it would be flying in the face of using science to determine what the best thing is to do for the kids in our community. One last point, so I have 10 seconds. You leave the fluoride in the water, cavities go down by 25%. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pan. Okay, the Water Advisory Board, the person that would like the fluoride to be removed is, who's speaking on that on behalf of the, okay. Please unmute, Chan. Could someone, Chandos, could someone please unmute him?
He was asked to unmute. He needs to unmute.
Okay.
How much time?
5 minutes.
Oh, well, I won't take much time for you. I must say that I was very impressed with the pediatrician's lack of understanding what fluoride is. And the fact that he said that fluoride equals chlorine and there's no trouble with chlorine. Well, fluoride is incredibly more active than chlorine. That's why you don't see any effect from fluoride. What I have to say is beyond that, and I'll have more to say later on. Fluoride, there is no biological requirement or use for fluoride. That means the body doesn't need it, doesn't use it, and it's really bad for the body. It has been presented by Dr. Connett. Drinking fluoride water causes a host of deleterious effects to the body. Among them are thyroid dysfunction, bone embrittlement, and so on. So the deficits are generally harmful to the body and not just to the teeth. Fluorosis is a disease and only a symptom of a greater problem. Everyone is affected or reacts differently when exposed to foreign substance to the body. Some people may be hypersensitive to fluoride or some chemical, and others not differences early. Well, others are maybe asymptomatic. However, fluoride causes damage nevertheless, as any medication would, because all of them exhibit these so-called side effects. And fluoride is no different, especially over the long haul. You may not be aware that your hyperthyroidism was caused by drinking fluoridated water, that your bones have become embrittled over time, which puts you at risk for bone fractures in a fall, when otherwise it would not be. Fluoridation in East Brunswick is medication without consent. And even doctors can't prescribe medication without consent. And I don't know why the government thinks it should be practicing medication without consent. They're out of their league. I'm Candace Caldwell. I'm an industrial chemist, and that's how I spent my postgraduate days as an analytical chemist. I became an analytical chemist and also a materials scientist, which means I had the equipment to identify any chemical that came across my desk and analyze it to minute parts per million levels, and also develop a method so one can analyze it. It's better. There's better technology now. I think they can go down, instead of parts per billion like I used to do, they can do nanograms or parts per billion nowadays. And also, I've been an adjunct professor at half a dozen of the colleges, community colleges around town. And that's how I spent my, that's why I understand very clearly the deficits that fluoridation consumption brings to the body and to the East Brunswick population. And also, my wife developed a hypothyroidism. And so I have a filter on my
10 seconds
water system to remove fluoride from the water. So everybody in town can get it, but I won't get it.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. I much appreciate it for taking time out of your busy day to do this. And the person who would like to speak from the Water Advisory Board to leave fluoride in the water. Do we have anybody?
I think it's Michael. Michael, I asked you on mute. You can try to unmute. There you go.
Got it.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yep, I won't need 5 minutes. I'm not a medical expert. Good evening, Council President Sullivan, Council members, and Mayor Cohen. My name is Mike Lorzak. My wife and I have been East Brunswick Township residents for the last 31 years. I've been a member and chair of the East Brunswick Water Policy Advisory Committee since 2007. I'm a civil engineer by vocation, so my career has basically been dedicated to community-based service. I continue to stay actively involved with the committee because I care about the water quality being provided to all the residents of East Brunswick. The debate about fluoride has been around since it was first added to water systems 75 years ago, as Dr. Sorkin noted. Over that time, study after study shows that it's a large contributor to dramatic decline in both tooth decay and keeping teeth strong and healthy. That's a fact. Growing up with fluoridated water in New York City, my wife and I have experienced these benefits. It continues today in East Brunswick with us and our 3 adult daughters who all have excellent dental and overall health. I believe the township to continue the practice of adding fluoride to the township water supply system. I agree with the medical experts who spoke earlier in this meeting that have stated that including fluoride is recommended by many respected government and professional health organizations, such as the American Medical Association, the American Dental Association, the American Academy of Family Physicians, the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, and the list goes on and on. These studies have been around for years. As with many other debates, be careful about what you read on the internet about fluoride. There are many opinions about the perceived harmful effects, but there is minimal credible studies out there and other evidence to support these claims. Let's stick to the work of the peer-reviewed studies by the medical professionals. I respectfully ask the council that they carefully consider the health benefits recommended by those medical professionals before they decide to remove fluoride from the township water supply. This should be a health-based decision and not based on saving $50,000 per year, as Dr. Sorkin noted, which equates to $1 per resident per year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And now we're going to move to the public portion. Any member of the public that would like to speak, please press *9 to raise your hand. When it is your turn to speak, you will hear an announcement that you have been unmuted. At that time, please state your name and address and know that you have 3 minutes in which to make your comments. Okay, thank you.
We'll start off with the person that's the last 4 digits is 939. I'm sorry.
9697.
9697. And I will tell you when you have 1 minute remaining of your 3 minutes, and then you will be muted promptly when it gets to 0. You're unmuted.
Yes, good evening, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. This is Charlie Cradaville. I'm the Central Jersey organizer here at Food and Water Watch. I know that we're based here in New Brunswick, and we have done a lot of work in East Brunswick, in particular, initiating the ordinance for renewable energy last year that passed at the general election. And I did want to share some of our organization's thoughts on water fluoridation. Although public health agencies argue we need to fluoridate drinking water, research has indicated that the largest benefits of fluoride in preventing tooth decay actually come from, primarily from topical application, toothpaste, mouthwash, and not through systemic ingestion. And, while we have seen considerable declines in tooth decay since the mid-1900s, countries that do not fluoridate their water systems have also seen similar declines. Since the start of water fluoridation, fluoride has been added to dental products like toothpaste and mouthwash, which are effective alternatives to fluoridated drinking water. And there are concerns that we have for adverse health outcomes beyond the skeletal system So the National Research Council's 2006 review of EPA's drinking water standards concluded that fluoride could potentially impact brain function, and additional studies were needed to assess that risk. And since that study, around 200 human, animal, and cellular academic studies have indicated fluoride could have adverse neurotoxic effects, like a decrease in average IQ in children, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and cognitive impairment in older populations. Elevated fluoride levels have also...
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Elevated fluoride levels have also been associated with greater rates of hypothyroidism, which, given the role thyroid hormones play in nervous system development, could provide some insight into how fluoride may impact IQ. And there is evidence that fluoride exposure at high concentrations is associated with discoloration of teeth, and under certain conditions can weaken bone and increase risks of fractures. I do also want to cite some work from the Fluoride Action Network, in particular, an article published March 27th, 2020, 4 studies that show adding fluoride to drinking water unnecessarily endangers children's brains. I encourage the council and mayor to review those studies, which I think raise significant concerns to the point that you will want to take action to remove fluoride from your drinking water system. And I want to thank you sincerely for hearing me out, and I encourage you to listen to the residents who are calling for this change. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Criscola, would you like to unmute the next person?
Yes. There's a young lady by the name of Tuka. I will ask you to unmute.
Hello, my name is Tuka Zokai, and I am the manager for fluoridation and preventive health activities at the American Dental Association in Chicago, Illinois. I am lucky to work with brilliant scientists and practitioners across the United States and globe that are dedicated to understanding the true social and health implications of community water fluoridation at the population level. To build some common ground, all of us want our communities to be healthy, for our children to grow without disease, and for our health departments to support evidence-based practices. Community water fluoridation continuing in East Brunswick will help accomplish all of these. A speaker earlier with a career rooted in promoting anti-fluoride hesitancy shared points rooted in misinformation, and it seemed to have an impact on the Advisory Health Council's decision. I want to clarify some things that were shared tonight. Community water fluoridation is part of the public water treatment system, which is a public service that is designed to offer water at the population level that is safe to drink and offers the best benefit for population health. Fluoride is a naturally occurring mineral in water, and water fluoridation is adjusting that fluoride to the optimal amount to reduce dental caries without adverse health effects. This is not mass medication, but optimal water treatment. Water engineers are trained to optimally treat water. Fluoride does not accumulate in our bones and hard tissues at the levels seen in water fluoridation. There was even a study published last week from Harvard that found no association with fluoride exposure and osteosarcoma. We are continuing to look at the evidence that's been ongoing for over 75 years on fluoride. Multiple studies have shown the power of our renal system. It filters fluoride so well that we would have water poisoning before fluoride poisoning from drinking optimally fluoridated water. IQ studies shared are also being misused. One of the authors, Dr. Angeles Martinez-Mir, has gone on record to say that if she were pregnant today, she would still drink optimally fluoridated water. Even the National Toxicology Program could not publish a final monograph on the toxicology of fluoride's neurodevelopmental implications because these studies were lacking in population-level implications of fluoride and neurodevelopment.
1 minute.
As was shared earlier, this public health program is about $1 per person per year. That's one of the most cost-effective public health programs a community could invest in. COVID-19 has shown us the importance of investing in disease prevention rather than relying on costly and harder to access treatment. Optimal water fluoridation is 0.7 parts per million. That's like 1 penny in $1,000. The thyroid, bone brittleness, and other health implications of fluoride shared are never seen in levels in community drinking water. Not all people have access to topical fluorides, but it is equitable for fluoride in water to offer the public low chronic exposure for optimal health. To close, I have asked many of the same questions that those who are skeptical of this practice are asking. I have a career rooted in public health. To understand how the science on public health programs impacts individuals at the population level, the only consistent health implication of water fluoridation is reduced dental decay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next person I'll ask to will unmute, last 4 digits, 1058. Please unmute. (1058), please unmute your phone. Let's go to the next person. Last 4 digits, 1266. I'm asking you to unmute your phone.
Unmute it.
They're unmuted.
Okay.
Thank you.
State your name, please, for the record.
Mary Ann Walker, 16 Civic Center Drive, apartment 19.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. From womb to tomb, fluoridation causes harm. Fluoride isn't just a neurotoxic risk in pregnant women and infants. A new Swedish study finds 50% higher rates of hip fractures in older women. A study from Sweden found 50% higher rates of hip bone fractures in postmenopausal women. And Swedish women with higher fluoride exposure had slightly higher bone mineral density, but also higher fracture rates, despite the higher bone mineral density. About 30% of people with a hip fracture will die in the following year. Hip fracture rates among the U.S. population are the highest in the world. A study from Sweden published this month found 50% higher rates of hip bone fractures in postmenopausal women in an area with about 1 milligram of liter fluoride in drinking water. The high-quality study used detailed information from more than 4,000 older Swedish women enrolled starting in 2004 and follows through 2017. Their largest source of exposure was from naturally occurring fluoride in drinking water at concentrations at or below 1 milligram per liter. Their total exposures fell within the same range as women living in areas with artificial fluoridation. Fluoride is stored in bones and builds up steadily over many years. It can reach levels above 1,000 parts per million in people living in areas with water fluoride of around 1 milligram per liter, which was the maximum level of the most of the women in this Swedish study.
1 minute, 1 minute left.
Serious implications for the practice of fluoridation. Its findings suggest that long-term consumption of fluoridated water may be responsible for 50% or more of hip fractures experienced by older people. This new study could help spur more high-quality studies on bone effects of fluoride, but there's already more than enough evidence to risk to the brain and now to the bone health. There is no justification to continue intentionally adding fluoride to drinking water for the sole purpose of trying to reduce tooth decay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you please unmute the next person?
Sure. The last 4 digits is 5966. I will ask you to unmute.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Vincent DiGregorio. I'm at 19 North Woodland Avenue, East Brunswick. At first glance, I assumed fluoride was fine. After all, it had been there my whole life since the 1950s in toothpaste, in the water that I drank growing up in Brooklyn and now in New Jersey. But when I started reading the recent literature, I do have a background in environmental science, by the way. But when I started reading the recent literature, I found out that the epidemiological studies that were done back in the 50s, if you compare them to the studies done in the last 10, 20 years, those are very, very lacking. They were supposed to run for 15 years and they were cut short. Policy really drove the addition of fluoride rather than science back then. And then it became adopted and taught in dental schools and became common practice. Yes, it's true that the authorities, a lot of these organizations promote fluoride, but even the CDC in 2015 lowered the recommended dosage from down to 0.7 from the previous one. They know something's wrong, or they're very suspicious of it. They know that there's skeletal fluorosis. They know that it's absorbed into the pineal gland, into the bones. But these things are chronic. Okay, they're subacute. As all the doctors and the dentists know, cavities do hurt, and they're acute, and they're obvious. These other things are not obvious, and they're chronic, and they take longer to study and longer to appear. To go on, a lot has been said about bad science and that the current studies are not good science and not peer-reviewed. I find out, again, going back to my first point, the opposite. The recent studies for the Journal of American Medical Association of Pediatrics, one of the most important, on neurological, the Harvard study found neurologic, and in Europe, 97% of the population does not use fluoridated water, and they have the same cavity rates as we do. Also, fluoride is a hazardous waste. So when you compare it to, you're not even legally supposed to put a hazardous waste into drinking water. That's why it goes down to the states to decide what to do, and at the local level, because it's actually counteractive to federal law to put a hazardous waste into drinking water. Some of the people who have spoken, such as the
10 seconds.
25% cavity reduction, and I just asked to look at the risk and balance of 25% cavities, which can be done by topical means, versus all these other things that we're opening ourselves up to risk that are coming to be known in the last 10 years.
Thank you for your time.
Could you, Mr. Criscolo, could you unmute the next person, please?
Yes. Dottie, I'll ask you to unmute.
Thank you. If you unmute it.
Thank you. Dottie G, 203 Wyckoff Way West, our lovely town, East Brunswick. About 7 years ago, I had heard a rumor that fluoride was not going to be added to the water any longer. And actually, I was surprised. I moved here from Metuchen. Before that, Milltown. Neither of those towns had fluoride in the water, and I guess I just assumed it wasn't in the water here. Anyway, it didn't happen that they took it out, and I can't tell you how disappointed I was and continue to be. And I've learned a lot since then. I've learned that, like many cities, the fluoride East Brunswick adds to its water is hydrofluorosilicic acid, HFS, and it's classified as hazardous and corrosive. It cannot be removed using a common filter like Brita, or most filters that attach to a filter, attached to a faucet, like I had before I came here. Filters that can remove it are expensive, and they require an additional cost of a plumber to install. This is quite unfair to people who don't want this in their water, but can't afford the cost of a fluoride removing filter. I've learned that we purchase our fluoride from Mosaic, one of the world's largest phosphate mining and fertilizer companies, headquartered in Florida, and a company which has been fined $2 billion over a 10-year battle over improper waste disposal. By law, they must dispose of their waste products responsibly, not in the air or groundwater, but they can sell their fertilizer byproducts to municipalities to add to their drinking water. How convenient and profitable for them.
1 minute.
Another thing I learned is that many cities are now getting their fluoridation chemicals from China. That intrigued me. What about East Brunswick? After inquiries, I learned that yes, our fluoride does come from China, delivered to the port terminal of Philadelphia, and then trucked by tanker to East Brunswick. More importantly, mixed with the fluoride are percentages of arsenic and lead, which we add to the water after it's been finished off. This is interesting as well. Fluoridation of water is banned in China, as it is in so many other countries. That's because they have naturally high fluoride levels, and the government now considers any water supply containing over 1 part per million fluoride a risk for skeletal fluorosis. It's had a long run in this town, over 50 years. Times have changed.
Your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Criscola, could you please mute?
Yes, Bree Zhang, please. I'll ask you to unmute. Bree, if you could unmute.
Hello. So I'm Bree, a member of Brown University Pre-Dental Society and also a resident of New Jersey, speaking in favor of water fluoridation. So I actually grew up eating fluoride tablets because my town didn't have fluoridated water. Looking back, I wish it could have, because my family didn't have, so that we didn't have to send so much money for fluoridation. And I've also been working at a dental office for 4 years, and I can't tell you how many people I've seen whose cavity and teeth problems were drastically improved through fluoride. Currently, about 73% of America's water is fluoridated, and I know there is hesitancy. People say fluoride is toxic, but we should remember that fluoride is a natural substance already in drinking water, and we're just adjusting it. Like many other common substances good for health, such as like salt, iron, vitamin A, D, oxygen, fluoride is perfectly healthy at recommended levels, 0.7 milligrams per liter, but of course can be toxic in massive, overly large quantities. For an adult male about 155 pounds, it would take more than 1,900 glasses of fluoridated water in one sitting to reach the acute dose toxicity of 5 milligrams per liter. And people also talk about how fluoride decreases IQ. And I've read some of the studies, and correlation doesn't prove causation. And a lot of those studies don't exactly control for social determinants as well. In addition, people say that fluoride might cause cancer, and I actually recently read some of the National Cancer Institute's website on their fluoridation, which states that recent studies have found no evidence of association between fluoride risk and risk of osteosarcoma. I just want to remind everyone that fluoridation reduces cavities by a lot, and again, it costs $1 per year per person in East Brunswick. I've also consulted dentists to find that the cost to fix a single tooth with a cavity can range anywhere from $100 to $5,000 to fix, depending on the severity.
1 minute.
If community fluoride is taken away, I also want people to think about how much money will be spent on treating cavities, which is also currently the #1 chronic disease in children. I personally believe we have a right to have healthy drinking water that benefits our health, and that's why I am in favor of community water fluoridation.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Criscola, could you?
Sure. Mitch, I'll ask you to unmute. Go ahead.
My name is Dr. Mitch Weiner. I am the current president of the New Jersey Dental Association. I want to applaud Dr. Howard Sorkin and the other speakers on behalf of pro-water fluoridation East Brunswick for their dedication to health and welfare of the citizens of East Brunswick. We at the NJDA are very supportive of maintaining water fluoridation in East Brunswick. I am not just the president of the New Jersey Dental Association, I'm also a Middlesex County dentist. I have been practicing in the greater Middlesex area for 31 years now. I've had a solo practice in the Kendall Park section of South Brunswick since 1992, and I treat a fair amount of East Brunswick patients who all have benefited from water fluoridation. I am also affiliated with Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital. I am presently the chief of restorative dentistry at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital. I've been involved with their residency program for 31 years this coming July. And I have seen the difference in communities that are fluoridated versus communities like New Brunswick that are not fluoridated. The devastation of decay, the kids coming in who are missing school, who can't concentrate because they're living in communities that could have benefited from fluoridation but didn't. This is something that East Brunswick needs, and we at the NJDA are here to support that. I'm a resident of Princeton, New Jersey, a community very similar in size to East Brunswick and very much like the community of East Brunswick. Princeton, I've been living there for 23 years. Princeton has been fluoridated for all the time that I've lived there. I raised my daughter there, who's 27 years old right now. One of the things we have in Princeton is the Institute for Advanced Study, which is a body of some of the most brilliant scientists in the world. It's where Albert Einstein did most of his work when he came to the United States. In Princeton, we have never had a challenge in my time here in the last 23 years for the fluoridation of the water supply, with some of the most brilliant scientists who understand peer review of science. It has never been challenged. I want you to listen to the pro-fluoridation experts who really questioned the validity of some of these studies that were quoted, so eloquently stated by the pediatric oncologist, and really heed the warnings from those that understand peer review and flawed science and go with what has been working for the last 75 years, community water fluoridation. Thank you for your time.
Council President, that's all the public that has wished to speak at this time. Okay. I'll turn it back to you for council comments.
Okay. Council.
Sharon, close the public, please.
Oh, sorry. The public portion is now closed. Okay.
Madam President, there was one person that raised their hand just as I announced. Do you want to entertain it?
Sure, we can. Go on. I don't want anyone to say.
0441, you can unmute. This will be the last person?
Correct.
0441, please unmute. Go ahead. Zero 0441, please unmute.
I'm sorry, it took me a minute there to figure out the higher technology. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Johnny Johnson. I'm a pediatric dentist as well as the president of the American Fluoridation Society. We are a nonprofit that disseminates information on fluoridation, the science, whether it shows good, bad, or otherwise. I have listened to this presentation, and I know I have been through this type of situation with you all. I know what you're going through making these decisions. It's the same in every community. The same players show up in every community. I will tell you that if anyone is to benefit from you stopping water fluoridation, it will be the dentist. We will make more money by you stopping fluoridation. Why would we be working to keep fluoridation in place? And the simple answer is, it helps to drive down a disease that is infectious as well as contagious and most common chronic disease of children, dental decay. there is a 25% decrease on top of toothpaste with fluoride and other products for fluoride when you have fluoridated water. Let me quickly make a point about the IQ studies, which were incorrectly called a Harvard study. It was a Harvard analysis. The Chinese studies were quoted as saying that they dropped IQ by 7 points in those folks. Well, guess what? That was in a group of people who had almost 11 to 12 to 15 times higher amounts of fluoride naturally occurring in their water than what we have in water fluoridation. They had control groups in China that were at the levels that we have. Those folks had no IQ changes. You're hearing the high IQ changes. There were zero at levels of water fluoridation. We have also had cessations of water fluoridation recently within the last 5 to 10 years. One is in Juneau, Alaska. The study out of Juneau, Alaska showed that children under the age of 7, after fluoridation stopped, had one more cavity per year per child, one more cavity procedure, crown, root canal, fillings. Take a classroom of 30 kids before fluoridation and after. After fluoridation, those 30 kids would have 30 more cavities than the other one. Next year, they'd have 60 more than the other one. The following year, 90 more. Cessations absolutely show us the huge benefit that fluoridation is creating, in addition to what we already know about how much it stops. This is repeated in Calgary as well. Lastly, I want to refer you to a website called fluidlaw.org. All of the claims that you're hearing tonight about being illegal to have fluoridation, mass medication against the law, fluidlaw.org has logged 109 court challenges by the anti-fluoridationists where they have lost 109 on the courts of last resort. Thank you for your time, and please vote for fluoridation to remain in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the council. If anyone in the council would like to speak, does Councilman Bihal have anything to say? You can unmute him.
Thank you, Council President. There's a lot of information to review. Both the groups have spoken. A lot of material to review. So, at this point, I will request we get some time to review the material sent to us, and then we can come back. Maybe we can also hear from Mayor Cohen, his reviews.
Okay. I thank you. Okay, Council Vice President McAvoy, could you please unmute him?
Am I unmuted now, Council President?
Yes, you are, sir.
A big thank you to Council President Sullivan for finally bringing the fluoride issue to the dais, and we will soon be able to conclude this issue. To the viewers, my task as your councilman has been to talk with you, the residents of our community, and they have spoken very clearly to me. I have spoken with 59 residents in the past few months, and only 4 have said, take the fluoride out. Those who wanted fluoride to remain in our water supply have differing reasons for such, but the common thread was that their dentist for their children was happy that they had fluoride in their drinking water living in East Brunswick. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councilman Wendell. Could you unmute him? He might be having problems with his internet.
There's several pages. Give me a second to see if I can locate them.
Okay.
I don't see him.
Okay, he texted me he was having problems with his internet, so he might have had to listen on 26. Okay, Councilman Spadafino.
He's unmuted.
Okay, could you?
Yes, thank you, Council President. What we are discussing here is not whether fluoride is good or bad. Fluoride has value in reinforcing tooth enamel. We have evidence of that. What is being discussed here is if it is appropriate for East Brunswick residents to consume fluoride in their drinking water. The biggest problem is that the ADA statements of the value of fluoride, by their own admission, is by application primarily, not ingestion. This has been cited many times. So why is our main delivery system ingestion? For 60 years plus, the ADA has stated that there is no evidence of adverse effects from drinking fluoridated water. Then about 6 years ago, the ADA decided that there was enough evidence of some detrimental effects that caused them to lower the concentration of fluoride from 1.2 max to 0.7 in drinking water, rather than advocating for its elimination. So after reducing this concentration 6 years ago, now again we're turning around and saying there is no evidence of detrimental effects from drinking water just from the 5-year change. The ADA states that trace amounts of fluoride in saliva still help reduce cavities. The question is, how much is a trace? And how many traces do you have to get to have benefit? And how should it be delivered? The benefits are questionable. I do not support fluoridation of East Brunswick drinking water. My goal is for the residents of East Brunswick to be free to drink the water that they pay for without being medicated, without their consent. Yes, the FDA classifies fluoride as a drug with no dosage control and no control on the amount of fluoride consumed. Residents are being forced to opt out of fluoridation of drinking water by purchasing bottled water or expensive filtration systems to remove fluoride, also adding to the trash stream in the town by a tremendous amount. The evidence has been clear that the benefits of fluoridation of drinking water decreases significantly in upper middle class, well-educated communities such as East Brunswick. These communities maintain good dental hygiene with regular dental visits, brushing with toothpaste containing fluoride, and flossing. My own dentist, Dr. Sorkin, has always advocated for me to make sure that I brush my teeth with fluoridated toothpaste twice a day and floss regularly. Countries in Europe that do not fluoridate their drinking water have been shown to obtain the same decreases in tooth decay over the last 60 years with practicing high levels of dental hygiene through national health care. Therefore, for the reasons of application versus ingestion, forced medication, increased dental hygiene of East Brunswick residents, and possible harmful side effects, I request on behalf of our residents to remove fluoride from our drinking water. What is the solution? Well, yes, we could take some of that $50,000 plus per year that is currently spent on fluoride and use a portion of it to supply fluoride rents to anyone wanting the benefits of fluoride without paying for it themselves. This was recommended 7 years ago. Ask the local dentist to supply vouchers to those at the Medicaid level to get regular dental care. If you dentists care that much, then you should be allowed to do that. And encourage local dentists to give fluoride samples along with the toothpaste and floss that I often get that could reach from here to New York City, and they give it to their customers every visit. After all the facts are presented, it is evident that good dental hygiene can be achieved without fluoridation of East Brunswick's drinking water. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before I conclude and I speak, I would like to ask Mayor Dr. Brad Cohen to speak. Please unmute him.
I am unmuted. Before you start the clock, I did want to, well, I guess the clock is starting. Before you start the clock, I just wanted to thank you and thank the council and thank the township for all coming out on this important issue, and as opposed to the national stage where we're watching people be disagreeable. We could disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that just goes to show that as a community, we really ought to congratulate ourselves for the mechanism and the manner in which we've conducted this evening. And I want to thank the council president for doing that and allowing this to take place. I also want to show that to the public that you could be from the same political parties, you could be from the same healthcare professionals, and we can all have different opinions, and those are all important that those be shared this evening. So I want to thank you again for letting us do it. And finally, I wanted to thank all those who are here tonight speaking, many of whom I know, Dr. Spadafino, Dr. Friedman, many other people here who are all participating in the community on different boards and commissions and have put many decades of time into this township. And I want to appreciate all the work and time that they give to this community. And still at the end of the day, we don't have to agree on everything. And so with that said,
5 minutes.
I have 5 points to make. USPHS, the U.S. Public Health Service, has made recommendations to the Department of Health and Human Services for years. It is their group and boards that are made up not of dental professionals, but it's made up of health experts, toxicologists, epidemiologists, environmental engineers, dental professionals, and researchers and biostatisticians. Their conclusion in December 31st of 2012 was that based on evidence that a fluorosis caused at levels of fluoride beyond 1 part per million, that they reduced the amount. They didn't eliminate it. Their suggestion was to reduce it from 0.8 to 1.2 parts per million to 0.7, which is the current level we use here in East Brunswick. They did not recommend that it be removed. The effect that they saw in terms of fluorosis was primarily cosmetic. There was a handful of people with pitting, but that didn't seem to happen at the lower levels. Second comment on studies. Most studies are not good studies. The media gives attention almost always to the ones that have catchy titles, outrageous conclusions, and conspiracy theories. A good study is actually mostly determined not by its title, conclusion, or an abstract, but by the study design and statistical method that's used to determine significance. Most good studies are double-blinded prospective studies, which would be almost impossible to do with fluoride because you would need to prove that a study and a control group had a large enough difference to make it statistically significant. You also have to be aware of who's funding a study. Very easy to figure that out if it's funded by a pharmaceutical company or an organization with a bias. It's not so easy if it's by a person, because you don't know what their bias. You also can't look at 2 different statistical sets and say that just because they're statistically different, that they represent causation. That's a totally different level that's not been proven. And so to date, there's been no proven study to associate fluoride with cancer, osteoporosis, pineal gland dysfunction, lower IQ scores, or any other health concern other than the fluorosis I mentioned. Third point, water fluoridation, seen as one of the top 10 public achievements of the 20th century, is designed as a simple and inexpensive method of addressing the dental concerns of everybody in the community, regardless of their economic background. Not everybody can afford bottled water. Not everybody lives in an affluent community. Not everybody has the best nutritional habits. Not everybody can afford a vitamin supplement. And not everybody can afford dental care. It's very expensive. You should know that in East Brunswick, 2020 data from the school board is that the percentage of East Brunswick students qualifying for free and reduced lunch was 17.6%. We are not all affluent in this community, and our job as leaders is to protect everybody. Fourth, you will hear claims about cancer, osteoporosis, lower IQs, again, pineal gland, all not proven. You've heard it's a toxin. Botulism toxin is a toxin as well. It's otherwise known as Botox. Besides its cosmetics use, it's also used for intractable headaches, hyperhidrosis, bladder dysfunction. It has a purpose, and so just because it's a toxin doesn't make it bad. You've heard that it's corrosive. Yeah, when I put chlorine in my pool at the concentration that I do, if I get it on my clothes, it can stain it or bleach it. But the reality is that when you put it in parts per million over a large volume of water, it's diluted. When you take acetic acid and put it at its highest concentrations, it's in solvents and cleaners. If you dilute it enough, it's called vinegar, and you put it on your salad. So I don't think that just because something is, you have to understand the chemistry.
1 minute.
Government forcing us to do something. The government does a lot of things on behalf of residents and utilize health professionals to give you that advice. We put vitamin D and calcium in our milk. In fact, that's required for anybody with free and reduced lunch because we recognize that that might be the only way they're going to get those vitamins. We put vitamin B in cereals. So there's many other examples where the government intervenes. It's not to poison people or to tell them what to do. It's acting on the advice of professionals to give them the best possible way of giving the safety to everybody, regardless of background. And then fifth, New Jersey has the lowest percentage of any state with fluoridated water, dead last in the country. At 70%. Every other state does more. And that's why I like to reference the Alaska study that was just mentioned earlier, because it did demonstrate what happens when it was taken out and put back in. So I appreciate everybody's time and consideration to this matter. I would suggest that we stick with what we do right now and stick to the 0.7 parts per million, which we utilize right now.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody that took time out of their busy night to give their opinions. The council will have a lot to digest. We'll have to do some diligence. And at a later date, we will bring this up for an ordinance or see what the future has in store for it. Again, thank you very much. I could be reached, and any council member that you would like to speak to can be reached. You could go on our emails, or you could give me us calls up and we'll return your calls. Again, I thank you for everybody. Everybody was important, whether you were a listener, whether you were a speaker. I appreciate it all. And this is what our community is all about. People that come together that care about our community. Thank you. Now I need a motion to close the meeting.
Everybody's muted.
Oh.
Councilman Spadafino, I unmuted you.
Let's see. Am I unmuted yet?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
I'll second it.
What I want to do is I want to ask that a draft of an ordinance be created to remove fluoride from the water.
Okay. Okay.
I asked Mr. Baker, I don't know if he's still on, but he said that that is all that is required. No second is necessary to request a ordinance be drafted and presented to the council.
Okay. So heard. Councilman McAvoy, did you?
He seconded the motion, but we need a motion.
Is there anybody that, I guess I make a motion to close the meeting.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, thank you. Have a good one.